Oh, super. I will.
Oh, I think we are live. Well, welcome Success Group. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to AMA Live. And we want to welcome Adam Frank. And thank you so much for joining us today. And we also, as usual, have our very own Ryan Bendeville with us today. We always appreciate when he's here. So Adam's with EXP, and he has a very impressive tech stack and a lot of knowledge. So we're really excited to have him joining us today. We can't wait to dive into everything he has to talk about. And I'm even interested in a lot of things he has to say. But Adam, before we get started, why don't you dive into a little bit about your unique background and kind of how we got to where we are today?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me on here. I'm kind of a unique person in that I don't have a technology background. I don't have any formal training about that stuff. I just kind of dove in and just kind of self-taught for the most part. When I was an agent almost 3 years ago, I started to get into real estate and just had to learn the technology side of it. So I got involved in the CRM that my firm provided, and then I just kind of dove in and stayed there, and that's kind of what I seem to gravitate towards. So I'm kind of stayed more in the CRM technology part of real estate instead of the people in the paperwork kind of stuff. So that's kind of how I came about to be where I am now, I guess. So
Cool. Very cool. And then, so how did you decide to come about to Revaluate? How did we jump over to that? With all the tools and everything out there, how did you decide to come over to Revaluate?
So that was my CRM that I'm using right now is Chime, and one of the guys from Chime, Randy Carroll, had reached out to me and said, "Hey, you like a bunch of nerd stuff? Let me show you this thing. Like, what do you think of this?" So him and I met with Ryan and did a Zoom call and listened to what Reevaluate does, and I'm like, yeah, like that definitely sounds like something that could be useful and definitely benefit my business. So I'm game. Let's do it. Let's go. So it was onboarding was pretty simple. Integration was pretty simple, and it's been a pretty good experience so far. I really like it. I see that there's a lot of value in it, and there's a lot of things that you can do to elevate your time in your database, because I think one of the most important things that it allows you to do is give you an early warning indicator of who you should be reaching out to, so that you're not wasting your time on people that aren't raising their hands. And you kind of like people that are kicking tires, let them kick tires. But the people that are pretty much going to start reaching out soon, you need to get on them real soon. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That is awesome. And is there any more to how you think you're going to grow Revaluate, or is that kind of how you plan to use it, or is there any other ways you plan to grow?
Right now, that's pretty much what I'm looking at as far as like an evaluation point for my business. Is I'm looking to see how the system gives me that early warning, and then also with other systems that I'm using, how they can kind of pair up in the predictability of making a move, and how it can supplement everything else in the tech stack that I'm using. So
awesome. And what is the rest of that tech stack? What other tools are you using?
I actually have it written down, because I have and this was just off the top of my head.
Yep.
So I'm using Chime with the AI chatbot as my CRM and my website. I'm running ads on Google PPC, Bing PPC, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm using Slack, Trello, My Plus leads for sale by owner and expired leads. Revaluate, of course. Identified. I'm using Zapier for a lot of connectivity stuff. Sisu, BombBomb, DocuSign, Sly Broadcast, Google Sheets, Spokio, Thanks.io, Mailbox Power, Lucid Chart, Calendly, and I'm evaluating Conversion.ai right now. So I got a few things going on. And when I Identified is, it usually tracks a lot of financial stuff. So when there is like an executive around the country that sells like their own stock at like a high, either high volume or a high dollar value, it'll take that data, and then I'm cross-checking that with Revaluate. Like I can bring them into my database and have Revaluate cross-check that to basically see, okay, well, is this something that's normal? Like sometimes in the executive contracts, they'll have it where, you know, if the stock price reaches $50 a share, you must sell 5,000 shares. Like it's in their contract. They can't really do anything about it. So Identified would pick up on that as like, hey, this is an event that occurred, and Revaluate would basically say, no, that's like, we don't need to worry about that. It's a regular course of business kind of a thing. So using the pair to basically say like, hey, this might be something, checking with Revaluate, and then basically saying, don't worry about it. Cool. I know that I need to spend my time elsewhere and not necessarily in that person, but it still gives me an opportunity to start a relationship with that person that came through the notifications. And I'm using things to get data, process data, interpret data, and track data so that my moves are moving with purpose and not just I'm just randomly kind of clicking on buttons and doing things. It's no, when I'm doing things with my database, with my business, I know what I'm doing, and I'm doing it to get results, not to test theories.
Are you able, Adam, to manage all of those different solutions from Chime as like a centralized hub, or most of them, I presume? Or do you have a whole bunch of things you have to log into every day currently?
For the most part, I do like Chime is definitely my central hub.
Mm-hmm.
I have there's a few things like, you know, Google Sheets. That's just where I'm taking data from one spot, putting into a spreadsheet that's programmed a certain way to organize how I need it, and then I'm cheat and then using Zapier to push it to a different system so that it's either has information or omits information that really isn't necessary for me to use in that other system. But yeah, pretty much most everything, like my entire database is in Chime. So all in, I like to call it my people base. But everybody in my people base is in Chime, and then I have as many systems connected to Chime through Zapier. When there's changes in my database in Chime, Reevaluate is constantly monitoring that database, and I can push it out. I can push out custom audiences. So like one of my favorite workflows or automation is when the Reevaluate score is 80 or above, they get added to a custom group in Chime, and then being added to that custom group in Chime adds them to a custom Facebook audience, and that starts a retargeting ad so that when somebody's in my database and Reevaluate lets me know, hey, they could make a move in the next few months, I just basically I don't have to think about everything. It's completely automated. So they tell me the score is 80 or above, and I'm already hitting them up on Facebook and Instagram with advertising. So it's one of those things where you set it up, you pay the bills, and it runs.
Yep, that's awesome. That's really cool. And you mentioned my plus leads for like for sale by owners expired too, I think you might have said. And I know a lot of people right now, I've been hearing a lot of different people talk about, you know, alternate ways to generate listing opportunities by going back like multiple years into the expired database, because there may not be a lot of expireds now, but you know, you go back 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you can kind of cultivate the old expireds. And taking a list like that and doing like you're saying, where you take like, if you take the last 5 years of expireds, who knows if those people still want to move or what now. But if we take and run them through the Revaluate system, so you can identify who are the ones that they still should be wanting to move based on their data, it'll help you to kind of just diversify your people inputs, like you were saying. Like, sounds like you have a lot of different people inputs into your people. I like that term, people base, right? And so that's a really cool one that I just wanted to kind of comment on, because not everybody's always thinking of how to pair it in the same ways that you're talking about, like taking a big list and then refining it down from, okay, that big list sometimes means that those people want to move. How do I identify the ones in there and triage down to the ones who are actually most likely to? And that's really cool to hear those different inputs that you're putting in there.
Yep, exactly. Yes, and that's really good. And even if even if the FSBO or the expired doesn't do business with you, that's still an opportunity, because as you know, as weird as this sounds to say, there's more value in that address than in that person. So like, not everybody's going to work with us, right? That's fine. I don't want to work with everybody I meet too, because some I'm dodging bullets. Let me tell you. But the biggest thing is, if I get an address, okay, somebody wants to sell FSBO, right? Cool. Their information comes into my Chime through My Plus Leads, and Revaluate is doing their thing in there. If I reach out to that owner and they're like, yeah, you know what, I just am not interested, or a lot of times too, things are moving so fast that they just happen to have an accepted offer by the time I reach out to them. Hey, that's great, awesome. Guess what? I missed the boat there. Do you have an agent in mind that you're going to be using when you buy your next home, now that yours is under contract? Congrats on this on the sale, right? And then when that a lot of times they're like, oh yeah, I'm using my brother-in-law. Okay, cool, no, that's awesome. I just reorganize, so I dump them into a special group in my Chime CRM, and then what I'm doing is I'm waiting 90 days to let that transaction close. And now I have an address that I can do direct mail with, either through things.io. What I'm doing is, and when I know this, and the agents that are watching this, I was guilty of it too. Everybody is to a point. That agent that helped that buyer buy the house that just was FSBO, they're likely going to drop off the face of the earth from that person, from that client, in the next 4 to 6 months. I'm not, because I got them on a direct mail campaign, and I'm getting them to come into my website. And once they do that, I have it set so that when they register on the certain text code, that's going to basically flip the switch, and I just merge the leads together so that I basically use the current address for the new homeowner that's currently there. And now that's going to be my new seller lead. I'm going to nurture them long term. And like a lot of times it's like a lot of these big coaches will say, if somebody says no, that they're not saying never, they're just saying not right now. So that's my attitude when I'm approaching these leads. I don't need to list them now, but I mean, come on. And if they list with me in 3 years, I'm not going to turn down that listing. So
right.
It's about focusing on the people that want to work with you right now, and giving the people that need more time, like, that's an opportunity to start a relationship, build a relationship, and maintain a relationship. And you can also monitor the things that they aren't telling you by using Revaluate to keep track of your people base, to see, you know what, Johnny Knucklehead over here, he's doing some things, you might want to reach out to him a little bit. Go call Johnny.
Yeah, and that's, making it more intuitive than just the traditional, like, okay, I'll get their information and then drop off the face of the earth until 5 years from now when they might be selling again. While that works for a subset, by leveraging the data and the monitoring and the Revaluate stuff, the people who, 2 years down the road, they get a new job and they have to jump ship, we'll give you that ping to, like you said, just say, hey, you should probably get a hold of this guy because something's going on. Something looks right, so to speak, and instead of doesn't look right, something does look right, you should give them a call. That's awesome.
Exactly.
That's the mindset that the most successful, whether it's agents, teams, mini brokerages, whatever, that I work with are adopting now. Is there's been this huge shift into that. People got real lazy with transactional buying leads, transacting, and then just buying leads to sustain business. And it seems like there's a big shift going on where people are starting to move more towards that mindset of, these are people there. Like, I just got to the people and timing, and then there's opportunity, and making sure that you can kind of be on top of both allows you to get to that opportunity.
Yeah,
and really, a successful transaction doesn't happen unless you're prepared for that opportunity. You can have opportunity smack you in the face all day long, but if you're not ready, like, oh, hey, I'm going to get smacked right now, you're not going to have a good reaction to that. And the biggest thing in business, I had a business in a different industry when I was younger, in my 20s, for about 9 years. And the biggest thing is, like, take action. And Revaluate helps you. It's not going to hold your hand, but it's going to kind of show you and hint at you, like, hey, you should kind of do it. Like, this is your moment here. And if you miss it, it's not Revaluate's problem, it's your problem. You know, like lead quality is not good or bad. It's your follow-up quality. If you follow up for 20 years with somebody properly and they list a $20 million home, was that a bad lead because it took them 10 years to list with you? No. You just had really, really great follow-up.
Yep.
You know, so.
Oh, I love all of that. There's so much good stuff in there. I hope people are listening and taking away everything you have to say. Kind of want to circle back to at the start of all of these tools. What's the first step you use when you start to build out these workflows and everything you have going on? What's your first step you would do?
It's very unorthodox so my brain is wired for data systems and processes, and I have a very unorthodox way of doing things. So a lot of people, when they're like, you know, they have a goal in mind. Okay, what's the first step? That's not me at all. I start with the last step, right? So I want to get a buyer to the closing table, keys in their hand, smile on their face. What happened right before that allowed that to happen? And then what happened before that, and just keep working backwards. So I will be the architect that sets and engineers the process from finish to start, run it through start to finish, look for leaks. I'm like that guy that has like that weird tape, and there's like that big clear cylinder of water leaking out of the hole, and he just like slaps that patch on there and plugs it. That's what I'm looking for in the process. So then once I identify those, then it's like, all right, let's get this thing going and keep monitoring for leaks, and then continually improving the process. But the biggest thing that I do that I see a lot of, you know, I don't see a lot of people doing is I start with the result because that's what I'm after, and then work it back from the beginning. And that way the path is going to be a lot more clear. It's going to be a lot more effective, and it's going to be a lot more efficient, because you don't have to ask why. You're just asking what happened to make this guy or gal close and smile with the keys in their hand. Okay, cool. So, and then what made them do that? And then what happened there? And what happened there? It's not about why. Why isn't really relevant in the process. It's because that's a very, you know, why do you want to buy or sell kind of thing. That's where the why happens. Next is what, how. So I'm focusing on the what, and then I'm learning what how is, and that's how I build the process.
There's just so much to pull apart from that. Everything you're looking at everything with all of the tools. You're looking at everything with the what and the how. How do you stay on top of all this?
I'm pretty active in a lot of the Facebook groups that have to do with technology and real estate, and I read and monitor twice as much as I post.
Wow.
I love the sound of my voice. Don't get me wrong, but you can't necessarily learn by talking. You learn by listening and reading.
Yeah.
So I usually spend a few hours a day looking at my system, reading everybody else's processes, seeing what's going on, seeing if I'm on the right track. I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that. Let me try that. See how that works. And just trying to get my fingers on the pulse of what things are happening. I don't get too trendy. I don't get too like, oh, this is a new up and coming thing. I consider myself slow to think, quick to act. So I'll take my time and really kind of evaluate what's going on. And then I'm like, all right, let's go. And when I say let's go, it's going to be either you're going to help me or you're going to get the hell out of my way, because I don't have time for anything but success right now.
If you don't mind sharing, what other groups are you in? I know you're in the Chime group. I know you're in the Revaluate Success group. Where other resources are you getting all this from?
There's a real estate mastermind group, lab code agents. Those are probably the big ones. Within EXP, there's the workplace, which is basically Facebook for businesses. So I kind of monitor a lot of things. I spend a lot of time helping people with CRM stuff from other companies and things like that in groups. Like I'm just like Chime is lead source agnostic, so am I, and I'm brokerage agnostic. If you're using Revaluate, I don't care where you hang your license. If you need help, reach out, I'll help you. I don't care. Like, you're not a threat to me. We're not competition. Our goals are very, very different. And the stuff I'm doing with Revaluate, it's not like proprietary. It's not a secret. It's I'm doing this. I got this Zap here. If you want my Zap, here you go. It's not there. So it's a lot of, and I found that when you immerse yourself in a certain group of people, the like-minded people will reach out and seek you out as well. So if you go into these different Facebook groups and basically do track all the nerd stuff, you're gonna find other nerd stuff that get down and dirty in the processes and automation like I do. So
awesome. Yeah, and you touched on anybody out there that's watching, if you're watching this after this and you're just watching the recording, drop any comments or questions you have for Adam. And if he doesn't see them, I'll ping him. I have a way to reach out to him. So let us or him know if you guys have any questions. This has been great stuff.
you bet.
Ryan, any other questions you can think of today?
No. I mean, this is really good. I appreciate all this conversation. I do a lot of the same things, Adam. I lurk in a lot of the Facebook groups, and I probably post maybe 1/10 as much as I just absorb. But I feel like in order to be effective in my role of like seeking partners and building business development stuff and generating opportunities, I have to know more than the average person, but never quite as much as like you or other people who are at the top of the game. Like I tell people I'm not the tactical one who can actually implement the stuff, but I love talking shop and hearing about all the different strategies and stuff so I can kind of have those conversations with people who are trying to figure it all out. So I'm very appreciative of all I know you posted the video walkthrough of the one workflow that you did in the Chime forum a few weeks ago. And I was like, that is awesome. I always screenshot them or grab the link and toss them to our team so that we can all kind of up our game so we can have the conversations and help people along the way too. So I appreciate all of the good work that you do.
You bet. Yeah, and I mean, one thing too is, I mean, we're all learning together, right? Like when you part of it as a company that I really like about Revaluate as well is like when you see things like, hey, this is how we're using this kind of thing. Like it's always like you're understanding the end user's perspective, and you're understanding and open to, okay, cool. It's like, so you're using this. How do you think we can make it better for you when you're using it this way? And honestly, and it really shocks me, there's so many companies out there that have such thin skin. And if you're like, hey, I don't really like this, it's just like they will be jerks to you. And it's like I don't know, like I'm trying to help you make more money, so I make more money. Like what? Like this is a win-win situation. Let's do this together. This isn't like I know more than you or whatever. Because like there's actually a lot of times where like in Chime, they have me on a few webinars and I kind of explain some of my processes and some of the things, and they're like, I had no idea that we can do this. That is awesome. Like it's like just get some time. And actually with Chime, I spent 10 months on somebody else's system monitoring the follow-up process before I even got my own account. And I was like, okay, no. And I basically went and I took it out, and people that had used Chime for years and years before me, like I was teaching them things where they're like, I had no idea we could even do this in here. I was like, I don't know. Like I watched the whole follow-up process and everything in there, and it's like just watch and listen. And I'm like, hey, you guys know that you can do this? Check this out. And you're like, oh crap, cool. Like they didn't even design things, but it was just in the whole process of everything that they built. It was just this feature was here, and I'm looking for those kind of opportunities in Revaluate. So I can say, hey Ryan, do you know that like this is cool? Like, how'd you guys come up with this? And then one of those things, okay, cool, let's build off of that. Like, you got a good foundation, build on what works, kind of a thing.
Yep.
So
absolutely. Well, we're not thin-skinned, so feel free to find all the skins and all the awesome things, and we'll work on making them all better together.
That's right.
awesome.
And I love what you said about taking the time and the bandwidth. I hear a lot of times people saying, I don't have the bandwidth to go in all these groups and post all here and watch all these videos. And I love what you're saying, that you're taking the time to read everything and contribute, and that makes your business more successful. And I think long-term success is what everybody needs to take away and think about.
Yeah, and one of my famous sayings that I've told people that ruffles a lot of feathers, but I'm not here to make friends or whatever, so I'm just gonna say it. But when people make excuses about You know, I don't have the time or whatever. Make the time. Well, I got this going on. If you cared about your business, you would find a way. This is no different than parenting. I got 2 kids. This is no good. I don't care if you lost your job, if you lost your, like, you have an obligation to your kids. Parenting is 2 hardest things in parenting is, number 1, finding matching socks when they're toddlers. The other one is like, you're like, no matter what happens, you're going to figure it out. Everything's going to be fine. They're going to have shelter. They're going to have food. You need to figure it out. So in business, this is what you want. Like, you know, one of the greatest things about being an entrepreneur and having your own real estate business is it's simple, but it's not easy. If you want to make more money, go sell more houses. If you make excuses why you can't do that, you cannot achieve what you want to do. So take action, just get it done, and write excuses on a piece of paper and see if you can put that in your bank account. It's not going to happen. You know, it's not. So
I'm putting that on a t-shirt. I love that. Motivation. I love it.
Yep.
I was going to ask you before we close, what's one last tip to leave for everybody, but I feel like we almost hit that.
I would say, as far as Revaluate goes, I would say that automating certain things in your CRM, I mean, whether you're using Follow Up Boss or Chime or some other system, you know, anything with Zapier too, you can connect your CRM with that. But when you're using Revaluate and you're just like, okay, well, where do I get started? I would say the best thing to do is, like I said, I've got a Zap or whatever. It's pretty simple to do on my. They can share the link with you on my YouTube channel about it. But if you create a simple Zap so that when the Revaluate score reaches 80 or above, you're basically moving that lead in your system somewhere so that it's just that high interest people. I think that's going to be probably the most important step you can ever do to your people base. Because what you're doing is you're leveraging technology like Revaluate, and you're using that data in a way that's going to give you actionable results. So here's all these people that are here's all these people that are in the system that are 80, score of 80 or above, and now you have actionable things that you can do, where you have a list. When you're like, well, you need to make time to do this stuff, you have to check on these people that just came into the system. You have you have no excuse for not taking action in there. And it's one of the simplest things that you can do is make sure that you are organizing your database every day. And it doesn't really take all that long to do it manually, because you should be able to figure out who is raising your hand and or raising their hand and who isn't. And if somebody needs more time, they just give more time. It's not going to cost you any money to just send them an email automatically through your system. So I would say the biggest takeaway would be use Revaluate to set up that Zap for your CRM to organize with automation your leads that have that score of 80 or above, and that will and take action on them as well. When you do that, you're going to see a very drastic change to your profitability in your business.
That was awesome. Well, we really thank you so much, Adam. Yeah, mic drop. That was legendary. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Adam. I hope you enjoy the rest of your trip, and I thank you for spending this time with us today.
Thank you for having me on here. I appreciate it.
Of course. We will talk soon. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful Tuesday.
All right. See ya.